Okay. And the third question, who owns the product roadmap? So 45% said it's product owner, and okay, it's a tie between the entire team and the product owner. Okay, which we'll anyway going to see. And who contributes to the product roadmap? Okay, more than 80% said it's entire team. I think interesting. I mean, those third and fourth question looks a bit confusing, but it's interesting. Okay, anyway, all the answers you would get to know in the session. Let me stop sharing. Fine. So, so this is the agenda we are going to see. What is the roadmap and why we need a roadmap for building a product, and who is responsible for this product roadmap. And once we create the roadmap, like how often we need to update the roadmap, and we will also be seeing types of roadmaps along with various formats which are used currently by various product companies. And at the end, we'll see how to build a roadmap, and then we'll end with a summary. Okay, we'll start. Okay, what is a roadmap? So roadmap, we all know, right? I mean, uh, it's a plan to guide progress towards a goal. Because initially, when you see in the 1980s, roadmap was used just to navigate from one place to another. Because at that time, in the New York City, when cycling was the only means of transport, so they were using this roadmap to navigate from point A to point B. And then Motorola was the first company which have started using this roadmap for this, for aligning the product development team along with the technology. So once it has started using it, it found it very valuable. So post that in the 1990s, the roadmap tool has become very famous that even Microsoft, Google, so many product companies have started using this roadmap. And that is how till date we are seeing that most of the companies are using roadmap for the product development, because it basically uh, nowadays they say like no product can be done without a roadmap, because it helps to simplify the process and keep the whole team on the right track. So if you see why we need a roadmap, so every product company would have a vision for the product, right? Vision is something for which the product needs to be delivered in the long term, and what the product is going to achieve in the long term. That's the vision. And strategy, we all know. So if it is a vision, and there could be a strategy for a particular vision. Let's take whatever the strategy usually turns the vision into actions or smart goals. Let's take, for example, banking. So in banking, if you see, uh, let's take a vision for a bank which says that to give world-class digital banking experience to the user. That is the vision of a bank. Then it strategic goals could be, right, either increase revenue with the same customer base. That could be the strategic goal you can have. So with that, in roadmap, what we can mention is like upselling or cross-selling the products to the existing user. So that's how in roadmap you would mention, so that it will tie to the product goal and to the product vision. So basically, this roadmap describes the product vision and strategy, and also it provides a guiding document for executing the strategy. So once you have the roadmap, then it serves as a guide. Like let's say you have formed a roadmap for the next 9 months or 1 year, then it serves as a guiding document for the entire duration. And also it helps the team to facilitate discussions. Also, it helps to prioritize what needs to be done so that it can deliver value to the end user. And if you see, it's not one team would be handling entire product development, right? There could be a lot of stakeholders. I mean, including the external, internal. So external stakeholders, I mean, customers, any partners we have, and also internal stakeholders. If you see, there could be some dependent product team within the product development team, or any other marketing team would be there. So all those stakeholders, we have to get buy-in from them, so that we can plan for the release. That is the next step. So once the roadmap is developed, then only more detailed view of release planning and backlog creation will be there. So in short, that's what I said. It ties three things. One is that why you are developing this product, that is the why, and what you are going to do as part of this in order to achieve the strategic goal, that is the what part of it, and when are we going to achieve it. So these three things would be answered in a roadmap. And we also need to ensure that roadmap should have things that creates value for the user. It's not something you mention it which can be developed, but it doesn't creates any value to the user. So we have to make sure that part. Because there was a funny saying, right? I mean, a world without a roadmap is like living in a world without a gravity. So I mean, without gravity, we all would be flying, right? So gravity is something which pulls all of us down. So that's why it's important to have a roadmap so that all the team members would be focused on the particular task. Otherwise, the person who is responsible, like let's take the product manager, he will be pulled into all the teams and he would not be knowing what to prioritize, when to prioritize. So that's why I said roadmap serves as a guiding document. Also, it gives a 10,000 feet view. I mean, it's not like roadmap gives all the details of what you're going to do. It just give a 10,000 feet view so that everybody understands it.
Just adding few points here. I think the quiz question, right? We had this why, what, and when. So why is the vision? And I believe a roadmap helps you strategize how we are going to implement that why with the what and the when. So that is what a roadmap is for me.
Yeah, any thoughts, any questions on this?
Team, if you feel any questions, you feel free to put them in the chat and we'll try answering them as possible.
Sure. We'll go to the next then. Okay. Before creating a roadmap, what should be your thought process, or what are things you need to question? So first thing is you have to think like whether are we going to deepen certain features, right? Suppose let's take there is an existing product where, for example, let's take onboarding experience for the user in banking. So we already have a product where the user can sign up and then onboard. But then are we going to increase that same feature and improve that onboarding experience? Or is it something we have a product and we are now focusing on adoption of that particular product without deepening certain features? So these are questions we need to ask. And if you're adding certain features, is it really required by all the segments? Because there are products we have seen where features are added. For example, let's take a base version and premium version. So all the features are not added to the base version, right? Because the base version is something free of cost. Whereas premium version, the user pays for it. So we will add a particular feature only to those users. And also we need to ask question like, is it adding any incremental value, like whatever feature we are going to build a functionality, or is it going to create a new user base? We can take example of Amazon Prime Video with Amazon Shopping, right? I mean, Amazon Prime Video, whatever Amazon does, the Prime Video, it won't directly add revenue, but then it makes the user stick to the product, Amazon Shopping. So likewise, we have to think whether whatever we are going to do in our product, is it going to add incremental value or increase the user base? Also, on the segments, right? Currently, let's say I have a product which is catering to the healthcare segment. So, am I trying to go to any other sector, or let's say my product is operating only in America? Are we trying to have this product available in other countries like Australia? And these are things we have to ask so that based on that we can create a roadmap. Suppose let's say if you're going to new geographies, then there will be a lot of issues like regulation issue or complaints. Those things we have to take care before deciding on the timelines on the roadmap. And also what you should stop doing. So this one is very important because you see a lot of products have features which is having very minimal adoption. So those features we have to see whether it should be there or we can remove it so that it will give a good user experience. Suppose let's take there is a product which we developed wherein to onboard the first 10,000 customers, we are giving cashback or loyalty points. But after some point in time, it's of no use because the product is already established. Then I think it's like a tech tip, right? I mean, we don't need that feature anymore, so we can remove it. So these are questions we need to ask before we just lay out the roadmap so that we can add exact value, whatever we are trying to. Yeah, sorry, Senthil, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you covered everything. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Okay, who owns the product roadmap? So I think this was one of the question.
Yeah.
So mostly in many of the companies, a product manager is the person who owns and manages the roadmap, and other stakeholders, like if you take marketing team or sales team, they would contribute to the roadmap because their views also is very important. But then because product manager is someone who knows the product vision and what are the strategic goals the company is trying to achieve. So he would be the right person who can own the product roadmap so that he will consider whichever ideas fit to that vision or strategic goal.
I'd like to add one small point here. If you remember in the quiz, we had around 45% give it as product owner. If I remember correctly, it was a very clear case of misdirection from our side. So a product owner is an agile role, whereas a product manager is the one who owns the roadmap. Each agile team might have a product owner, or it could be a combination of 3 to 4 teams having one product owner. Whereas a product manager is the CEO of the product, and he is the one who is responsible for the product roadmap.
Yeah, also, so what I
Senthil and Vishnu, there's one question from Ganesh in the chat. The
Mhm.
question is, who are all the people involved in creating roadmaps? Do you think to cover it in this slide or somewhere in which is coming?
Yeah, we'll be covering.
Okay, fine. So Ganesh, let's wait for this, and if it's not answered, we'll come back again.
Sure.
I'll add a few more points on that, right, on that question. So the product manager owns the product roadmap, but it's always very important to have the ideation coming from stakeholders, customers, users, your other team members, and then the developers are some people who really give inputs on how your product backlog is going to be. So I would definitely say it's a combination of all the team, but still the owner is still the product manager. I believe that's a slide on this, right? Vishnu, I think.
Yeah. No, also what I understood, Senthil, is so because product manager is someone who owns the roadmap, but product owner is someone who implements this roadmap. I think in some of the projects I have noticed.
Mm-hmm. A product owner is still an agile role, right?
Right.
There might be teams which might not have a product owner, it's fine. But there's a clear distinction between the role product owner and a product manager.
Right. Fine. We'll move to next.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Clicked. Okay. Okay, this is what happens if all of the stakeholders, I think there was a question around stakeholders, right? So we need to make sure that all the stakeholders are involved in creating this roadmap. Otherwise, the PM has to run like this. Fine. Okay, where do the roadmap items come from? So, see, there is a misconception that all the ideas, whichever we mention in the roadmap, comes only from the product manager. So it's not the case. He owns the product roadmap, but then the ideas will come from customers, I think, who are very valuable, and sometimes from the development teams, marketing team, sales team, or even sometimes from random person whom we are interacting. So it's not that PM is responsible to add all the ideas. So that's why we have this collaborative road mapping exercise, which is more like an ideation session where people from different departments, like as I said, marketing, sales, and engineering team. So all those stakeholders would be having a collaborative meeting where there will be an open discussion, like what are the product strategic priorities we can set in. So based on that, the product manager would anyway set the context. Otherwise, it will be like an open discussion. There won't be any fruitful result. So the product manager has to ensure that he sets the context, vision, everything, so that whatever ideas they discuss, right, based on that, they will either modify the roadmap, current roadmap, or they will create a new one.
And the product map varies based on audience, right? Let's take Ganesh, for example, right? Ganesh is a marketing person as an assumption. So if we are going to do a roadmap for Ganesh's team or his leadership role, then the stakeholders point Ganesh's inputs become necessary so that the visual representation makes more sense to Ganesh's executive leadership. Whereas if you are going to do a roadmap for your team, right, the development team, for an example, then probably what would be more relevant is providing them the epics, the details, the technical architecture. So a roadmap is not a single document that is to be presented for all the audience. Each audience will have its own set of roadmap.
Yeah, anyway, we will see that, but Sendhil is again emphasizing that, right? I mean, it's not the same for all the audience. Right,
Vishnu and Senthil, would you like to take a call on this question shortly? I mean, this is a very big topic which Vishnu is asking. The difference between product owner, program manager versus product manager. If you could give it with a small, simple example, people could catch it easily.
Okay. A product manager for me, see, there are multiple definitions, but I'll give my version, right? A product owner is a role within an agile team. A product owner helps you kind of solve the problems within the specific agile team and helps you run the execution of the project. That's a product owner. A product manager, I would call, is the CEO of the project. He is the responsible for the product's success or failure. That's the product manager's role, a mini CEO of the product. A program manager, slightly different, right? A program manager might have like 2 to 3 projects under him and he manages these projects. A program manager's main idea would be like he would depend upon the time, is the scope under control, is the time under control, is the budget under control, and is the projects under the program running successfully. That's a program manager for me. So it's more of a project manager, but at a higher level. A product manager is the CEO of the product, and a product owner is a role within Agile.
Vishnu, does that answer your question? Okay, I'm hoping so. Over to you, Vishnu.
sure. Go to the next slide. Yeah. So how this roadmap fits in an agile project? Let's say the product manager with the vision. Sorry. Yeah. So with the vision and strategic goals, we are going to create a roadmap. Wherein, as I said, so roadmap should have what value it is creating for the user. So I think before that, I'll just give a brief example of what is outcome as output. So output is something describes the result of an activity. Suppose, let's say I'm from a product development team. I'm delivering a feature for a music streaming service. Let's take Airtel Wing or Spotify. I'm delivering a feature which is an output, but then that feature, what value it creates for the end user. Let's say I've delivered a feature to save the favorite song or create a folder for the favorite song. So that is the value addition which is creating for the user, right? So that is called an outcome. So in roadmap, we need to make sure that we mention outcome so that it will be clear for all. Even if it is an engineering team, though we will mention other details, but we need to make sure that even the engineering team understands what value we are creating for the end user. So this is the important thing we need to note while creating the roadmap. We have to mention only the outcomes. And in addition to that, anything can be specified. There is no limit to it. Yeah. So that's what I said. I think someone mentioned, right, that many people are misunderstanding that it's like a promise or it's like committed dates. That's not a case. So it's not a promise, it's agile. Even if you create a roadmap today, it might tend to change the next month itself. So it's always agile, it's going to be agile. Okay, now we are going to see what are the roadmap types we have and the different audiences. So one is that industry-based roadmaps. One is the technology roadmaps where we create a roadmap for developing a software product, whereas in the manufacturing roadmaps is the same, but the product would be a physical product. And purpose-based, wherein market-based, we can create a roadmap. Like if a product is available in multiple markets, we can create a roadmap with respect to that particular market. Or if a company like Amazon has a portfolio of products, then we can create a product so that in a roadmap, we would be able to tell the progress of all the products. That is called a portfolio roadmap. And you see the graph here, right? It's an audience-based roadmap. As I said, as Sindhil also emphasized in between, that one roadmap, it's like one size not fits all, right? I mean, one roadmap can't be shown to all the stakeholders. So you have to create a different roadmap for executives, different roadmap for sales team, marketing team, engineering team, product team. So with the vision and strategy goal in mind, it's the audience who decides what roadmap you're going to create. For example, let's take you are going to create a roadmap for executives. So they would not be interested in a very detailed feature-wise or story-wise. They would not be interested. They just wanted to understand like what is the milestone or when we are going to finish it, or whether it's the value which we are creating is it ties back to the vision which we envision for the product. So those are things executives would be interested in. And if you take other stakeholders like marketing team, they wouldn't be I mean they would be interested, but they wouldn't be interested whether this particular roadmap ties to the vision or not. Their concern would be like when is the release date so that I can plan for launching the product. So that will be the main concerns. Based on the audience, we have to create the roadmap. And the third, if you take a product team, so they would be more interested to know what features we are building, what stories we are creating. So though the roadmap would differ, but then you need to make sure that all the stakeholders are understanding the value which we're creating for the end user. Okay.
Vishnu, before we move on, there's a question from Usha Shri, and it goes, what do we consider as components in this slide? I think it's 2 slides before this. This one? Yeah, the components.
Okay, that's what. So as I said in the earlier slides, right? We, as a product manager, we are going to own this roadmap, and we have to make sure that the entire stakeholders are getting this vision. Because without the vision, without the business objective or time frame, because all these things we have to make sure all have the context, so that in a collaborative exercise, everyone would be able to give the priorities of the roadmap. So that is the reason. First initial step is making everyone understanding what is the vision of a product, what is the time frame we are seeing that to launch this product, and we have a theme. So theme is like it's like a set of features. Suppose let's say I'm building an app for a banking. So in that onboarding is a theme. In that you can have sign up, login. So there will be a lot of features you can incorporate, but it comes under the particular theme. Because if you split it and then mention it in the roadmap, it would not be easily understandable by all the stakeholders. That's the reason we are having this theme-based roadmap, wherein you can mention the theme like onboarding or customer user base increase, something like that. Any theme you can create, under that you can have a lot of features. So those are components which the stakeholders need to understand so that we will be able to come up with this roadmap. No, it's not a line item. That's what I mean, because all the roadmaps wouldn't be having all these components, right? So, some roadmaps would have themes, timeframes. Some roadmap would have vision with timeframes and themes. So it's not like a mandatory thing that all the roadmaps should have this. But before creating a roadmap, we need to make sure that all these components are understood by all the stakeholders. I hope this would have answered the question. Yeah. Yeah. How often should you update your roadmap? So it's the question I think most of the product teams or product development teams will be having, right? So if it is a startup, I would say, it's not a hard and fast rule that it should be updated monthly. But then in general, if you say roadmap is something we create for 9 to 12 months, right? In general, enterprise companies which has the established product would be updating their roadmap quarterly, and the startups would be updating their roadmap monthly. But it might change because there could be few scenarios, right? Like I mentioned, strategic shift. Suppose, let's say, for example, during the pandemic, if a startup has created a product, but then due to pandemic, it has to change its strategy, right? Let's take it has created a platform wherein easily the user can book or book a time to visit a shop during the pandemic. But post the pandemic, it is no more relevant. So it has to change the strategic shift. Even for shopping, also most of it has changed. So that is how on following KPIs. Like let's say we have considered a few KPIs that it will work, but then if it doesn't work and the customer doesn't like it, then we have to change the strategy according to it, and the roadmap has to change accordingly. Even trends in customer feedback, if they don't like the product, then we have to change the roadmap accordingly. So all these factors also consider the frequency of updating your roadmap. So also again, I'm saying it's not a hard and fast rule that you would be changing it monthly or quarterly, but then it tends to change. As I said, it's always agile. Yeah, I think this product manager would definitely have this frustration, like, pray, I do not have to it any further, because he's the person who owns it, right? Whenever there is a strategy change or KPI change, he has to change the roadmap and communicate the same to all the stakeholders. Yeah, I think I can hand it over to Senthil now. He'll take you through the types of roadmap.
Yeah, thanks, Vishnu. Before going through the types of roadmap, right? So how I would like to run is, I'd walk through, there are around 11 to 12 types of roadmaps which we can try to work upon. So I would suggest that we can ask your questions for each of the roadmap. If you have questions, please feel free to put it in the Zoom. I'll see, I'll talk like which type of roadmap could be used for which type of situation, and where would you not use the roadmap. That is also something I like to talk on. So we'll begin with a very simple roadmap. It's called the now, next, later, never roadmap. So you have your own set of features. So you classify them under 3 categories. Now, which you are going to use to build in the current sprint or the next 2 to 3 sprints, followed by next, which would probably have a little bit of focus. You would have prototypes and mockups maybe. And then the later part, which is at a very high level, broad scope, and you not even know what you're going to build and what is the estimates for them. Okay. What does the never part come in, right? So it takes a lot of bravery to decide, okay, I'm going to do a never part also for a roadmap. Let's take example of a banking app, right? A banking app might never have its social media plugin or a login. That's one of the most important features in most of the websites, but security might never allow a banking app to have a social media plugin, even though it looks attractive. That could probably be put under a never part of the roadmap. How would you estimate these roadmaps? Now would probably require clear estimation so that you can get started with it. Next, you would probably do a very ballpark estimation. And later, I would probably say you would not be estimating that even if there is force, because it simply is useless because you are giving some random numbers. So that is how the now, next, later roadmap works. Where would I use this roadmap? This is something that can be presented for any audience, right? Even if you want to do it for your high-level executives or for your product team or for your mid-level executives, the marketing team, you can go with this now, next, later roadmap. If you are beginning to build a roadmap for the first time, I would suggest this as the starting point for you to start with. That's a now, next, later one. A slightly advanced form of this now, next roadmap is a error band roadmap. So this allows multiple items to share a space in time, and it constrains how many items would be at the current top priority. To kind of simplify how it works, let's take this one that I have put in here, right? For September release, you see that there are 2 items that have been prioritized. There's a space constraint which ensures that you cannot put in more than 2 items at the same priority at this release. Whereas if you go for the December release, where you have slight time, you are able to put in more items, but as and when it keeps coming nearer to the release, you have to prioritize. You have different options. You have to prioritize, and you have to make sure that, okay, hey, I can only do these 3-4 items for my November release or December release. So once you have stakeholders who are not prioritizing, this would be an excellent option, a radar band roadmap. It would give you a clear idea of, okay, these are all the items I need to do, and I can prioritize these items using this radar band roadmap. This is a very famous, the last 2 roadmaps mostly could be used at product level and if needed at executive levels. This is a very specific McKenzie model. It's used at the organization level. There are 3 segments which you see here, right? X-axis being time and Y-axis being value. The horizon 1 speaks about your cash cow. When I say cash cow, this is what is actually providing you your business value. Maybe I'll give you an example later, which I'll show you. The horizon 2 is items that you are trying to pick up. You are actually having these items in your nearby future. You'll be doing this. On horizon 3 or seeds to your future business, which you may pick it up later or which you can invest some money, but which might or might not become successful. It doesn't mean that you have to prioritize horizon 1 over horizon 3. That's the clear idea of this McKenzie model. I've given an example of the McKenzie model using Facebook's 10-year roadmap. So this was the 2017 Facebook model, right? So their cash cow was initial Facebook ecosystems. Their ads were providing them the money. In 2017, what were they trying to pick up as the nearby items? They wanted to bring in video, Messenger, search, WhatsApp, groups, and Instagram. And in 2021, if we see, we could tell that they have accomplished almost everything in this. What did they have as a 10-year horizon? They had virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and connectivity. They are now trying to concentrate mostly on the virtual reality part, but I don't think it's being successful. But probably we'll see in another 3-4 years how it's being successful or not. So this is one that could be used to organization, as I called out. The important call out of the horizon map is, it's not that you should always concentrate on your cash cow, right? Example, if Facebook keeps concentrating only on videos and messengers and search apps, they might miss the future, which might be virtual reality. So it's necessary that you are able to concentrate on all the 3 horizons and just not look at the cash cow that is giving you money as of now. Okay, the 4th type of roadmap. I'll pause after this for questions, so that I'll finish this. The Go roadmap. This is developed by the very famous product guru. His name is Roman Fishla. So the product roadmap has 5 features. It has a timeline, a name for the release, a goal. So it's called a goal roadmap, and then features which will help you achieve the goal, and then metrics which ensure that you have actually achieved the goal. So I'll talk via this example, right? This is a health app that the specific team is trying to develop. So for the initial MVP release, I am trying to get an initial user base. Let's say maybe 1,000 users. And how am I trying to get them? By giving them features like healthy eating dashboard, and then basically a smartwatch which they could integrate with your fitness devices. If you see, this is the Healthify Me app that is actually available in India now. How do I measure that? Okay, I have achieved this. After the first quarter, if I am within the top 15 diabetics app 6 weeks after the launch, then you could say that I have achieved this as a success factor. So this is a goal-based roadmap. This is one of the most famous roadmaps that was used around 2013, 2014 timelines. Why is it probably not, and I wouldn't say relevant, but why is it a little bit outdated? Because it forces us to give till fourth quarter fixed scope, and agile is basically you understand that whatever you do in quarter one could affect quarter four, and this doesn't look like a Go roadmap is actually accommodating that. If you could have a very flexible third quarter and fourth quarter, then a Go roadmap is a perfect way for you to start with roadmaps too. I'll pass here. I can take any questions on these 4 roadmaps. If there are no questions, then I can go back to 5th and 6th.
Senthil, can we unmute or is it just chat?
Yeah, feel free to unmute and answer.
I have already unmuted. Sorry.
No issue, sorry. Yeah.
Okay. So if it would be good if you could see which kind of roadmap can be best fit for which category of product or which phase of a product. Like in my personal experience, I went with that now, next, later. It was very niche in my case. There is no clear vision. Okay, cannot say like no clear vision. The vision is fine tuning, and I couldn't have a broader way. But this helped me. This now, next, later is the one that helped me to put something in buckets.
Okay.
I like that if you can tell for the other things as well, it would be useful for. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll take that question. All right, I'll go through these remaining roadmaps, but I'll specifically answer that question. How do you know which roadmap to do at which point of time? And I'll take that question definitely. Any other questions? Okay, I'll give a short answer for that, and then when I come to that slide, I'll talk later, right? I would always suggest a hybrid roadmap. When I say a hybrid roadmap, take a roadmap that is correct for the audience, one, as I called out early, but also see if you can combine 2 roadmaps, right? I have given a picture where I have combined 2 roadmaps. I'll show you that example that will tell you that, okay, this roadmap has the Go roadmap, right? Example, you can take the first 2 quarters as a goal-based roadmap, and then maybe the third quarter and fourth quarter, I would suggest you do a theme-based roadmap. So you have the benefits of the Go roadmap combined with the theme-based roadmap. That would be my suggestion. I would also suggest avoiding very feature-specific roadmaps. The next one specifically. So this is what most waterfall and immature organizations try to make use of. Basically, you list down all the features. You have a web team, a mobile team, a marketing team, or you do it like I want to do consumer growth, enterprise growth, scalability, and then you list down all the features with a timeline view that is present. Why I wouldn't recommend this type of roadmap? If you have a visionary leader and if he's able to drive, then a feature roadmap is good to have. But if you want independent teams running, then it has the problem of becoming a feature factory. What do I mean by a feature factory is you keep on churning features, right? The idea is to complete this new admin console, complete this mobile mockup and push it to production. But if you take a step back, it's always necessary that is the new admin console providing me an outcome? When I say outcome, is it delivering value to the client? Are you able to measure that? And are you able to make changes to your features based on that? So that is the problem with the feature specific roadmap. But if you are new to Agile and if you're new to road mapping, then this is a very easy way to kind of get a wholesome picture, but do go with the caution that it can become a feature factory. Okay, milestone roadmap, I'll probably recommend to show it to executive leadership. A milestone roadmap is, let's say you have a enterprise-wide industry meeting that is going to happen, and there's a timeline that is very critical. Let's say by 31st August, I need to present this demo. Then that specific timeline you could put in your roadmap. So that is what I would call as a milestone. A milestone for me is mostly not compromisable. So I have to finish these type of features within this roadmap. So you should not put in a lot of milestones, then they become useless. But a critical timeline can be put in as a milestone within a roadmap. And that kind of tells you with features, okay, hey, this is the milestone I have to hit. And if I hit this milestone, then I have achieved something. So that is what I would call as a milestone roadmap. And it can be done in different ways, right? You could run it as a product roadmap, and then there's this goal setting timeline that has this different milestones. I need to finish my KPIs by 2018. I need to finish by goal setting by 2019 so that I can finish the entire setting and process in 2022. So these are critical timelines you need to hit for the product to be successful. And this is mostly used for executive leadership. Okay. This is one of my favorite roadmaps. This is called a theme-based roadmap. I'll give a very specific example on the right side. Take example of Amazon, right? And let's say Amazon has 3 to 4 themes. One of them could be improve onboarding experience. Another could be to have a number of products being displayed and viewed at some point of time increased by around 30%. Another theme could be, I need to improve my shopping cart completion. So instead of going it by features, which I was saying that would become a feature factory, can I have themes, a theme-based roadmap? So one of the themes is, which I have done is this improve shopping cart completion, right, for an e-commerce website. So then we came up with ideas that would support these themes. So we decided, okay, we need to provide mobile support for that e-commerce website. We need to improve the credit card payment. We just had Master and Visa, then we added Amex. Can we improve the UX so that the card completion could be done? And then we had a new admin console where specific card-based dropouts through the funnel were caught actually. So if you see, these are all features now actually which help towards the theme. And as long as these features are delivered, then the theme becomes successful. Can I make a roadmap which is based on these themes instead of features? So you still have a web application, but if you see, these are all themes that I'm trying to improve. And then based on the color coding, you could say which is higher priority and which is lower priority. This is a theme-based roadmap. OKRs, it's a very vast topic, objectives and key results. If you are following an objective and key result based hierarchy, then you can go for an OKR roadmap. I wouldn't recommend having an OKR roadmap because it's very congested. You could, if you're comfortable, yeah, go ahead with it. But if your organization is following an OKR methodology, then yeah, go ahead for an OKR roadmap. You would have objectives and key results under each of the OKR roadmap. My favorite roadmap, this is what I use. This is called a dual tracking roadmap. We have 2 phases in a dual tracking roadmap. One is a discovery phase, another is called a delivery phase. So I'll give an example of what we are doing now, right? So we are a dual tracking roadmap where we have our design team working continuously with me and the product owner to create designs and UI items for features that we are going to develop 4 to 5 sprints later. So we are getting those designs ready. We are getting the functional clarity ready and stories written. Whatever we are creating now would become input for the delivery team after 3 sprints. So that is a funnel where the discovery sprint keeps feeding the delivery sprint. The delivery team would always be 3 to 4 sprints behind. They will keep on churning out what we have discovered, and then the delivery would happen. And once that delivery happens, we take into input what is the feedback that we have gone using the metrics, and then that feeds as an input for the discovery part. So it's a funnel that works as a cycle, if you see. So discovery phase that keeps on analyzing and putting the items in to the backlog for the delivery, and delivery team keeps executing, and then we take the feedback and then we start the discovery again. This is very famous, and Google follows this process often. It's also followed in Kroger.
Sendil, there are two questions. One from Suraj. Suraj asks, what would be the must-have components in an ideal roadmap? Some models don't have timelines, some don't have success measures. So he's asking, like, which are the components is important for a roadmap?
Okay. So there is no specific format for a roadmap, right? That is what I'm trying to emphasize. Each roadmap has its own structure. You can try putting in a timeline. You can try putting in the features to a roadmap, but it is the audience that defines what needs to be put into each roadmap. If you're going to do a dual roadmap, just as an example, since I'm showing this, right, this is mostly for the team, right? Then you would just need to put in a roadmap that has maybe just the features. The team doesn't care what is the strategy, what is the vision. The team needs a set of epics and features. So that is what will be part of this dual track roadmap. Whereas if you go to a feature-based roadmap, just as an example, here it has its specific quarterly delivery. It has the themes that you are going to work upon, the features. This is basically says like, hey, autosave is more important for me in Q3, followed by which autosync is important. So each roadmap has its own set of structures and timeline. I would say whatever roadmap you are going to take that specific template, read through it, see if it fits your audience, and then work on it. That would be my advice.
Thank you, Sendil. And just one more question from Sudhakar. We'll just try to cover this quickly. Is it safe to say that milestone RM may not be great if we anticipate RM tend to change now and then upcoming days? There's also another question from Sudhakar, which goes, can I use GORM if my vision, goals, and features are clear and in fact, product designs are finalized as well?
Okay. The first one, I would never say milestone RM is bad, right? Let's take for an example. What we are trying to do in Agile is not put or promise timelines, but in reality, I have been in projects where client has told me that, hey, I have this deadline. This is an important milestone. You cannot miss this. Then the time becomes fixed. The only thing that is changeable is the budget and the scope. So in that case, a milestone-based product roadmap is the only way for to go ahead, actually. So there is no definite wrong or correct answer, but each specific type of requirement requires a specific type of roadmap. So a milestone roadmap is needed if the milestone is fixed. That's the first one. Can you mention the second question, please? I missed that question again.
So the second question is, can I use Geo roadmap if my vision, goals, and features are clear and in fact product designs are finalized as well?
Perfect. So in that case, right, I would suggest a hybrid of a goal-based roadmap for the first quarter and the second quarter. So basically for the MVP and version 2, use a go-based roadmap. But after for version 3 and version 4, I would suggest a theme-based roadmap. So it's a hybrid of the goal-based roadmap and the theme-based roadmap. Because see, however clear we are, quarter 3 and quarter 4, you can never be sure that the features are going to be the same. It's going to change in future. You expect it to change because you are going to get feedback based on quarter 1 and quarter 2. So don't commit timelines for quarter 3 and quarter 4, but quarter 1 and quarter 2 do goal-based. Does that answer the question?
Yes, they have acknowledged it.
Thank you.
Sendil. There are two more questions, but I would suggest you finish 1 or 2 slides with the types of roadmap, and then we'll take those 2 questions.
Sure, thanks. Okay, this is a very innovative roadmap that you could use if you're going to present to a critical. You have this audiences where they are going to come at you, right? They are going to say like, hey, what is the feature that is going to go and what is the feature that is not going to go? The meetings where you are going to be got. I would suggest this roadmap, right? This is just a very simple roadmap. We just highlight the features. This is a simple red, amber, green that we see in our traffic lights. Whatever feature that is going to go, you put it in green, and whatever features that is not going to go, you put it in red, and whatever features that might make it, you put it in amber. And then it starts, the people start with all the set of barrage of questions, and then you kind of start going deep into the features, basically the red features that they start asking. This is a very simple way to get started with the questions for a important meeting. This is a traffic light roadmap. A similar one to that is the size scale roadmap. Here, if you see, this is done when you start with your project, right? You want to do a very high level representation, but you don't have much details. You just have a ballpark estimate. Then this is a very easy one to get started with. So you have the bigger ones. Example, CRM migration might be probably a 30x effort, whereas an iPad app might probably be just a 10x effort. So even the fonts are important here. The font size as well as the size of the box tells you, okay, what is the bigger feature or the bigger epic and how much important priority is this, and then you can decide on this, you can make a priority. So this is a size scale roadmap. Okay, so I'll come back to the question that came often, right? Which roadmap should I use and when, how should I use it? Never use a single roadmap. I would always suggest, from my experience, use a hybrid of the formats shown. Go through these roadmaps, we'll share these slides, go through these roadmaps, see whichever suits you. And then if you could create a hybrid of the roadmap template relevant to your audience, that would be the correct roadmap. The ones which I prefer are the Go roadmap, the theme-based roadmap, and then sometimes I worked on OKRs too. Okay. Things that should be included in your roadmap. Not all of this would be available in all roadmaps, but you should probably have some of these at least necessary for a roadmap. A broad time frame. If you're using a theme-based time frame, a theme-based time frame, your high-level product goal. So this is something that is very necessary, that if you could have a high-level product goal and then mention clearly within the product goal why you're doing this, then most of the questions which the audience have might be answered based on that. Example could be, I could say, hey, I want to achieve 100%, not 100%, it's not possible, probably a 50% improvement in my audience who are coming to my mobile app. That could be my goal. And if my metric says I'm planning to achieve this by improving the audience retention or by improving the cart velocity, then that kind of clearly tells, okay, this is the goal and he's trying to achieve this by this metric, and the question gets answered there. Basically the status of each stage, risks, and this is the sales and marketing effect. This is something that usually we don't do in the product team, but if there are marketing people, you definitely need to do a product marketing roadmap, which would definitely have the sales and marketing effects bringing in. Okay, this is something like I just took it. This is an example of a real-time Microsoft 365 roadmap that is available. And they have the, if you see, this is like similar to the now, later, next one. So basically this is in development, rolling out is now and then launched. And this kind of gives you a view of, okay, what are all the features that they have. Okay, again, just re-emphasizing how to build the business roadmap. You determine your why. So your roadmap always comes from your vision. And then you see who is your audience. A lot of people miss this. You build your roadmap according to your audience. Then you have a strategic theme that you decide upon. Then out of these 7 to 12 templates that I showed you, choose one template and then create the roadmap. Okay. Last few slides I'm going to summarize, but if there are any questions, I can take that before that.
Yeah, so I think there are two questions. Maybe you could summarize and then we'll go with the two questions because there are only 3-4 points, right? Okay. And we'll just take 5 more minutes to summarize and then answer those questions. People just spend some time on the summary, and also we are sending the feedback link now. So please take some time to give your valuable feedback. It would really mean a lot to us. Sendil, you could summarize this whole topic.
So your product roadmap is a strategic counterpart for your backlog. If you don't have a roadmap, you are not doing any strategy, you're just doing tactical changes for short term. So always have a roadmap. There is always the contention on, should a roadmap have a date? Should my roadmap not have a date? It's up to you. Specific date should be kept in plans, but that is always not a promise, as I called out. It's just a date that is indicative. You're assuming and promising that you might go in, if it, as long as it's not a milestone-based roadmap. If it's a milestone-based roadmap, then usually the timeline is fixed. A product roadmap is a wish list and not a promise to fulfill. Product roadmaps come in different shapes and sizes, as I showed you. what template is not important. What is important is, does your audience understand what you're trying to say? And the last and least not important, the roadmap always helps you identify what's the future state and how we are going to achieve that. That is the roadmap for me. Whatever content I showed you, whatever I have learned about roadmaps is all based upon this specific book called Product Roadmaps Relaunched. If you want to learn about roadmap, I would suggest this book by John Bastro and Steve Blank. Get started with this if you want to understand roadmaps. It might slightly be theoretical, but this is a very good place to start. I'll also like to thank Andy Birds, whose sessions I have attended are major influence for my product roadmap presentation. Thank you.
All right. So we have also shared the book's link in the chat. Team, please take your time to give feedback. We'll just go over the two questions which Madan and Suraj has asked. The first one is, Madan's question is, if suppose there is a deviation in roadmap, how to mitigate and come back to track? I think Senthil has also explained a lot of, keeping the roadmap a bit fluent. Senthil or Vishnu, do you want to add your thoughts?
Roadmap is expected to change, right? So that's this famous saying, right? None of the plan will always go according to the plan. So the roadmap is bound to change. If it is bound to change, then if it is a startup, right, you are expected to keep changing the roadmap every 3 to 4 days. And if it is a mature organization, maybe every quarter actually. So it is bound to change, and that is the nature of the beast. If it doesn't change, then you are actually following a waterfall model, I would say. So don't be alarmed if a roadmap is changing, if it is going out of date. Probably you need to align with your stakeholders. Your product manager needs to take inputs from all the stakeholders to again see where this roadmap could be brought into track. But a roadmap should change. It can never go 100% according to plan.
Yes, just one thing to add, it's agile, as I said, it tends to change. So whenever it changes, as Senthil mentioned, we have to make sure that all the stakeholders are aligned to the new roadmap that you have modified. Yeah.
Thank you, Senthil and Vishnu. I think that was good answer. We'll go on to the last question from Suraj. How do I measure the success of my roadmap model, or perhaps, list of things which is part of roadmap?
Okay. I would always say a success of a roadmap is done by 2 factors, right? One, the metrics that you define. It could be any KPIs that you have, but the metrics alone are not enough, right? The final success of a roadmap is dependent upon the outcome you achieve. If there is value provided to the client or the customer, then the roadmap is a success. It's not the output that you deliver. You could deliver your features, it could still be a feature factory. But if it doesn't deliver value to the customers, which is by the metrics you have defined, then the roadmap is a failure for me.
Senthil and Vishu, thank you so much. It's really amazing, actually. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. And I have one question regarding for the startup, 2 people startup company. Which roadmap do you prefer?
Okay, that's a good question.
Like, we don't have a clear vision right now, but want to understand, but our vision is evolving, right, every day. So what would be the best roadmap do you prefer?
I would probably again suggest what I am doing, but this is solely from my perspective. Right? I would suggest you go with Roman Pichler's goal-based roadmap, but probably keep it fluid, not as static as what he has done. Define it for Q1, and then Q2 and Q3 probably have theme-based, because the product-based roadmap has this goal-based roadmap has metrics for you to define, and that may probably help you. But this is clearly from my perspective, right? I'm not sure if there's a correct answer of what is the roadmap for a startup. Vishnu, maybe you could add, but
No, that's what, as I said, I mean, there is no clear definition of this map to be used for the startup, right? I mean.
But what was the history like? These roadmaps, they are like using our ancestors, everyone used, right? So there may be some start, right? So how those days they have, do you have any historical information, something like that, which will add more interesting to this session.
Not from my side, at least.
I think we need to explore more on this then.
Oh yeah, amazing. It is interesting. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Maybe if I have to take a very long shot at this one, right? This also depends on the product strategy that you're building. Like, what is your strategy for go-to-market, right? And just basically building certain blocks for it to achieve success at each stage. So if you do that, I think that can be your high-level start for the roadmaps as such. But then later, when you have more definitions and details around things, you can go with things that Sendil and Vishnu just suggested.
Yeah,
But
I think
maybe that is how, because that's the core, right? That doesn't change unless something drastically changes in the visioning itself.
Yeah, I would recommend probably you look at the product market fit and the go-to-market strategy, which Vaishak has also mentioned. That would probably be a good start for Ganesh.
Okay. All right. Definitely, like, we'll stay in touch and great discussion.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ganesh, for your question. And I think this also kind of opens up another perspective, right? Because when it comes to startup, it's more experimental in nature, right? Where the startup is constantly trying to analyze whether a problem that they've chosen, is there a possible solution to that, and that solution, will that work out or not, and can we marry the problem and the solution together? Then you take it to the larger audience, you take it to a big market and see whether the product will accept this, whether the market will accept this product or not, the solution that you're coming up with. So it's a more experimental way of going up with things. And good to hear others' perspectives as well on how well it is to keep the product roadmap more fluid for a startup like culture. So yeah, nice to know about that. Thank you. Any other question?
And importantly, we have very less time, right? So when you start up, it is not something like, we are doing full time. So like, we are spending like 2-3 hours in the morning to think about our company, like, and
absolutely,
in that short time, there may be something that we can do. So I'm expecting that, like, I'll do.
Ganesh, I would suggest you look at OKRs. I'm not sure how feasible it is, but try exploring OKRs, not as a roadmap, but probably look at OKRs. That might be helpful.
Sure. Great. Thank you so much.
You could also have a look at the book if you have time, something called as Continuous Discovery Habits by Teresa Torres. She talks about this opportunity solution tree, and you could also figure that out more like a tree on how your startup idea is rooting towards as a tree. And that would also help you maybe figure out some ideas, Ganesh.
Perfect.
And more importantly, I would just put that focus back on that word that Divaka just mentioned, being fluid, right? And that is more important for a startup. And coming back and making those fine readjustments whenever necessary. So if you keep it as fluid as possible, there is flexibility in terms of change and adapting to the change immediately. I think that's key. But great to know you are on that path, and let us know if there is anything that we can support from our side. But yeah, you keep coming to our shows. I think you'll find something definitely useful, and you can take back to implement.
Great.
All right. Perfect. Thanks for that question, Ganesh. It was, I hope, a nice question. Any other questions, folks? I'll see a lot of people thanking Sendil and Vishnu for the session. If there are no other questions, then we'll also I would stand on behalf of the audience and also as the organizing team, want to thank Sendil and Vishnu sincerely for all the efforts, because there was also project work going on for them. So they were doing a lot of doings with slides and content, all these things for making this presentation possible today. Thanks a lot, Sendil and Vishnu, for making this possible. It's really a great session.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for joining. We'll see you in the next episode of BizKnight with yet another wonderful topic. See you, folks. Have a nice evening.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice evening.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.